This is Gary Atencio with CNTV, and today we're in Denver, Colorado. We are in the international headquarters of Project Cure. Since 1987, they have been delivering health and hope to the world. I am with the CEO, Dr. Douglas. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Why don't we begin, first of all, share with us, back in 1987, your father basically found himself face to face with a situation that he refused to turn a blind eye to, and this took place in Brazil. Pick up the story from there.
Thanks, Gary. Yeah, my dad was doing economic consulting in a little town outside of Rio called Mesquite, and his interpreter was a medical student, and she said, you know, I'd like to take you to see this clinic where my mom and I work. They do volunteer work there. And so my dad said yes, and they went to see this little clinic in Mesquite. And it just tore his heart out because it was an old house that this doctor had tried to convert, and there really wasn't anything in it. There was an old metal exam table and a box of re-rolled bandages, and on the back porch they had a dental unit and the drill you would run with your feet, like an old treadle sewing machine. And my dad just said, you know, you can't do medicine like this. And so he came back to the United States and was having lunch with some friends, and one of his friends, Greg Lowe was the guy's name, owned a medical wholesale company, and he started giving my dad stuff, filled his garage up in the mountains full of things, and my mom and dad paid to ship that first container down. Now, a container is a 40-foot semi-truck trailer, right? So that's what the size of this.
Right.
Well, we've gone from there, one container in 1987, to we do about 3 containers every week. We've worked in 132 countries now, all over the world. And, it's all these people who, you know, they just don't have health care. They don't have the tools. The doctors and the nurses don't have the physical tools to save these people's lives.
Interesting. I mean, when you took over in 97, the company had already grown quite a bit from its humble beginnings there. I mean, it continues to grow now compared to what your dad was able to do in 30 days to get it first shipment out. Right.
Yeah. And, you know, we've grown in a lot of different respects. The number of countries that we've shipped to, certainly the volume that we deliver. I go back to Washington, D.C. and meet with people, and they tell us that there's nobody in the world doing as much volume of medical supplies and equipment as what we do. So that's grown. And the really fun part is, you know, we've got an army of about 17,000 volunteers all over the United States. There's this warehouse, there's 3 more of these big ones, one in Phoenix, one in Nashville, one in Houston. And then we got little collection centers, literally from Ithaca, New York to Sarasota, out to Portland, Austin, and Albuquerque, and Grand Rapids, Michigan, and all these other places where we collect this material, bring it here to the big sorting centers, we process it, make sure that it's all good, and we deliver it out. But that takes 17,000 volunteers every year to make that whole process happen.
So you've got distribution centers, basically large ones in multiple states, but you've also got smaller collection ones throughout the states as well. Share with the viewers, what are some of the supplies that you're able to obtain?
Well, everything that you need to run a hospital, that's what we're interested in. All the stuff you need in a clinic, for example. So you can imagine walking in, the first thing that you would see is waiting room furniture. We ship some of that. We do the examination tables and the lights and the little stools and all of those things. If you walk down through the hospital, you'd see beds, you know, for all of the people that are actually hospitalized. Go into the operating theaters. There's this big stainless steel operating tables and the big lights and the anesthesia machines and the suction and the bone drills, all of those things. The ICU, so you have the monitors, the emergency room, you've got the gurneys and the crash carts. And then all the supplies that go with it, so the needles and the syringes and the pads and everything that you need on that side of it as well, suture and gauze and all of that stuff, casting material, crutches, canes, walkers, wheelchairs, all of it.
That's amazing. So we're talking from syringes all the way to the furniture that you need in the operating tables as well. Right now, like you say, you've served over 130 countries. Who are some of the recipients on that end? They're basically the professionals that are using it, as well as those that are being treated.
Well, we've worked in really, really large hospitals. There's some hospitals where we've been that are, you know, over 1,500 beds. That's huge. We've worked in small clinics. We've been all over, you know, Africa, South America, Asia. In some of these little clinics, that's the primary health care. That's the only place these people are going to get care in that community. So we'll do a project there where we, go in and we put in maybe a small lab and examination tables, maybe some observation beds. That would be a small project. Big projects, we did the first angiographic catheterization lab in Ethiopia. That was like the 9th one on the whole continent, right, for 85 million people in Ethiopia. And they didn't have any angiographic catheterization at all. And so we teamed with this great doctor there, Dr. Belai, and we put this in. So everything you can imagine.
Clinics all the way to hospitals. Back in '87, obviously there was a need there. Because of rising costs, are basically health resources more so today than possibly even back then?
Yeah, and it's an interesting thing because there are a lot of countries where we work. Well, statistically, 1.2 billion, with a B, billion people work 12 hours and they make $1, right? And so that's 4 times the size of the population of the United States. And they just can't afford health care. They spend all their money on food and lodging and maybe some clothes or transportation. And then when they get sick, these people don't have an alternative. It's not like they just go to the next place because that place is empty too. And so, things that, like in this country, one of the exciting things in any family is when mom is going to have a baby. In too many places on the other side of the world, mom having a baby means mom is going to be at risk, and there's a pretty high probability that she's not going to make it through the pregnancy. So Project Cure goes into places like Zambia and Uganda with the Saving Mothers Giving Life program. And in 1 year, we've been able to reduce maternal mortality in 5 districts in each of those countries by 30%. It's huge. But you intervene in that process and, make sure the doctors are well trained, make sure that those moms can get to the hospital, make sure that we've got the right incentive program for prenatal checkups, and make sure then that they have all the tools that they need, that the doctors can save that mom's life. You can make dramatic results.
So not only, like you say, from a happy day of childbirth, but all the way to life-saving surgeries that people need.
Right, exactly. Orthopedic surgeries and internal medicine surgeries and, just the small treatment things, that diagnostics, if you don't have the tools, or if there's nothing in the hospital, people won't go there because they're not going to go to get help if there's no help. And that spirals the other way. Then they don't go to the hospital, they wait until the outcome is too bad, and then it's too late to save them. And, some countries, I was in Mongolia, and the people who show up with cancer, 75% of them die because they don't intervene early enough in the process. So if you can get those people incentivized to come into the hospital, that's the same thing in the United States, right? Sure. Go get your checkups, go to the doctor, go make sure that you're taking care of your health early, and then that's, it gives everybody a shot at keeping you healthy.
So pushing for a proactive approach as well.
Right.
Wonderful. We're obviously sitting in the boardroom here of your international headquarters. Obviously, you've got a window out here to the volunteers.
Right.
They pretty much are the lifeblood of this organization, would you say?
They really are, and that's the best part about it. Mean people don't do charity, right? So if somebody is going to come down here and work, we know where their heart is, and they're just the most special people in the world, and they're giving. And the amazing thing about this? They will work this hard in the warehouse. Some of these people come in 40 hours a week as volunteers. They'll work in this warehouse, and they never even get a thank you from the recipient. They can't.
It's amazing.
Because those people live on the other side of the world. They're poor. They don't speak English, whatever. These people are coming down here because of the goodness of their heart, and it's just absolutely incredible.
That is amazing. Let's go into a little bit of detail on some of your projects that you have. Let's begin, first of all, with Cure Cargo. You touched on a little bit. We're talking about cargo as big as semis sometimes here.
Right, yeah. These are these 40-foot cargo containers. Most people, when we see them running down the freeway, we just think that it's it's a semi-truck trailer.
Absolutely.
But you can tell because there's holes in the top corners, and they pick those up and take them off the truck, put them on a train, put them on a boat, get them over to the other side of the ocean, pick them up, put them on a truck, and deliver them to the hospital. So that's our cargo program.
Is there a pretty detailed assessment on that end, making sure that you're hitting the specific needs of that particular location?
Yeah, we always start doing the assessment. Now remember, my dad was not a doctor, he was a business guy. So he had to sit down with these recipients on the other end and say, explain to me what it is that you do.
Sure.
Well, that started this whole process, and that still is a central thread in the fabric of who Project Cure is. We're not going to go and displace a doctor and say, listen, step aside, we're from the United States, we know better than you. We're going to sit down with that doctor in all due respect and say, listen, what you're doing here is great. I mean, some of these doctors are working in impossible situations.
Amazing.
So we'll sit down with that doctor and take about 2-3 hours and go through a whole list, 18 pages of questions, starting with the easy stuff, right? How many doctors, how many nurses, how many surgeons? And then we get into the hard stuff, what's your priorities, your top 3 priorities? That assessment we do on every project before we ever ship. Based on that, then we create a list of all the things that doctor said that they need. And we come back to the warehouse, we dig around in the warehouse, we find those things. Then we ship that list back to that doctor and say, okay, here's what we propose to send to you. If you don't want it, cross it out. We're not going to send you something you don't want.
Sure.
That keeps that doctor on the receiving end in the driver's seat. It's his project, not ours.
So regardless of how it gets there, in what size it gets there, obviously anybody can pitch in, help out that process. One of those smaller ways is what they call the cure kits.
Right.
Share with us what that is all about.
Well, a cure kit is a box about 50 pounds, and we designed this for doctors and nurses to take with them on an airplane. Now, my friends in Rotary will do that. Some of our church groups will do that. We did a project with the Marines where they went and they delivered about 500 of these all through Iraq on the back of these Humvees, right? Taking these into clinics that didn't have any medical supplies. So it's everything you need to run a clinic. So stethoscopes and gloves and bandage wraps and gauze and speculums and all of those things in a neat little box. And we UPS it right to their door, and they can pick it up, and either they repack it in a duffel bag or a suitcase, or they can use that box. And they check it on as luggage, and they take it with them on the airplane. Get to customs, we got all the paperwork done for them, and so they just take that and walk it through, put it in the back of the car, and drive it to wherever they're going.
That is amazing. If someone out there wanted to help out, maybe they don't know someone personally who's traveling abroad like that, are they able to sponsor somebody as well?
Oh, that would be great. And see, that would be a terrific thing because we've got medical residents from some of these universities, and they want to go, and they would love to take these boxes, but, they're a student, right? Sure. And so to sponsor a box, the value of what's inside of there is about $2,000. Okay. To sponsor one is about $200, and that includes the UPS and everything else to get it there. That's the cost of the box. It's everything. So for a $200 sponsorship, you can put $2,000 of medical supplies in somebody's hands.
Wonderful. Obviously, one of the recipients on that end are women and children that you have touched on. Obviously, children, not only life-saving surgeries, operations, but even basic medical supplies. Share with me the Kits for Kids.
Well, Kits for Kids was kind of a concept that we came up with, this idea that there's a lot of moms all over the world who don't have what they need to take care of their kids in their house. Sure. Just the simple things, And we love working with kids like these little Girl Scouts. We had about 600 of these little Girl Scouts out the other day, and they're packing these kits for kids. We provide the bag. It's like a nylon drawstring soccer bag with a list of everything that should go in it. Well, we talk to these Girl Scouts and say, what happens when you slip and fall and hurt your knee, right? Well, Mom puts a Band-Aid on. Great. What else do we do? Well, we put Neosporin on. That's right. What else? What if you don't have a Band-Aid?
Sure.
And one of these little girls raises her hand. She says, well, we go down to the grocery store or the drugstore or whatever we get. What if there's no drugstore? And you see this moment come across like, oh my gosh, really? There's places in the world where they don't have supplies? So this is an opportunity for kids and churches and clubs and everybody to get involved. We give them the bag. They go to the store. They buy the 25 items that's on that little list, put it in the bag. It only costs $5. So you put a $5 check in there. That pays for the bag and it pays for the shipping, believe it or not, to get it clear to the other side of the world. And we're donating this. We did a fun project with 4 moms from a Montessori here in Denver, and we took about 700 of these kits, and we went to Belize, and they stood there with all of these little kids coming in this big long line, and the kids got a little sandwich and a pair of shoes and a medical kit, and it was these 4 moms from this Montessori here in Denver with the First Lady of Belize. It was the neatest thing, Kim Simplest Barrow, and she stood there in that hot sun handing these out to all these little kids. And some of them, it's the first time that they had that kind of thing at their house, right? Makes all the difference in the world.
Like you mentioned earlier, these volunteers, they're not able to see that. Thank goodness for cameras, video.
Right.
I imagine it
Right.
touches their heart knowing what's going on over there.
Right.
Are the U.S. hospitals here, do they play a big part as well as far as donation, in kind, that type of thing?
Yeah, and all of this stuff is extra, right? So we'll go talk to these doctors and nurses and say, hey, listen, what are you going to do with that examination table? What do you do with the gurney? What do you do with that wheelchair? When you're done with it, we'd like to have it. And so the hospitals donate a lot of things. We'll go tell the same story to big, medical manufacturing companies like Hill-Rom, for example. They give us all the beds. AMSCO gives us their lights and the sterilizers and the operating tables. We got a great program with Stryker and their surgical drills. And so they'll just give those to us directly, and it's an amazing job.
Procure project that you put together. Right. Wonderful. Viewers, take a look at the bottom of the screen right there. What you're going to see is their website, a very informative website there. You're going to learn a little bit more history about this company that began really in Evergreen, Colorado in 1987. It was in 1997 that basically the son came along to take on the program, expand it even further. Take a look. They've got everything on the website. You want to see what country they're serving? You have a pull down right there. You want to take a look, a way that you can volunteer, how you can help out. They've even got events right there. Let's say they've got a fundraiser coming up, a golf event. Very easy way for you to have a good time, and yet at the same time knowing your dollars are going somewhere that, quite honestly, to a place that doesn't have things that we take for granted really pretty much every day. Let me ask you, obviously folks can get involved either traveling, taking a kit with them, possibly donating, even as simple as maybe buying some coffee. Right. Share with me who you've partnered up with here.
Yeah, there's a great company here in town called Boca Java, and they are a direct business-to-consumer organization. So you get online and you say, okay, I want a pound of coffee every month or every 2 weeks or whatever. They roast it like on Wednesday, and they get it to your house on Friday. So it's the most freshly roasted coffee you can have. And coffee goes bad after you roast it. It oxidizes just like wine. You don't leave your wine out. Well, some of the coffee you buy at the grocery store has been in that can for 6, 8, 9 months, 2 years, whatever. That's why it tastes great first and then it's bad. These guys are absolutely terrific. Best coffee. But here's the cool thing. All the proceeds from buying that Cure coffee go back to that little village in Jinoteca in Nicaragua, and it provides the cost to do health care in that village for the people who do the coffee, right? So these growers come down. We've got nurses and doctors there to help treat them and to give them sort of the health fair experience, do a lot of diagnosis, some treatment right there. And the idea is then that they go back up to their coffee farm and they're healthy and they can grow more coffee. A lot of places are doing fair trade coffee. This is the only place I know that's doing fair trade plus one is what I call it, because all of the proceeds then go back to that same community. And we're real proud of that. Not only is it great coffee, but we're changing the world in that little community.
Absolutely. So many ways for not only individuals to take part, be in volunteering. You've got companies that can also donate. You've got local companies that have provided a beautiful facility, a warehouse for you here. Quite honestly, overwhelmed at honestly a lot of the lives you must have touched. Do you believe this was a vision far beyond what your father had in mind?
Yeah, I think so. And we'd like to think that you can sort of omnipotently and omnisciently see into the future. I don't think so. We just keep trying to every day come in here and improve this. And I didn't think it was going to be this big, honestly. But every day you seize that opportunity, and you take that chance to take a little bit more risk and do a little bit more here and a little bit more there, and the next thing you know, you're really moving the world in a lot of respects.
What James Jackson did back in 1987, paid the shipping on that first shipment out, has grown into something quite wonderful. Last time viewers, take a look at the bottom of the screen. Their contact information is right there. You can check out the website. Obviously, they would love for you to come in, volunteer. If you're not sure how you can give back, they have many ways right there on the website. And keep in mind, this is a company that started, it's really a Colorado success that really has expanded across the globe. This is Gary Atencio with CNTV, and if you don't know, now you know.